So Ladybird's a good film.
A coming-of-age movie about how our expectations on people don't meet reality. It's a great debut for first-time director and actress Greta Gerwig, that actress who starred in several independent movies that your artsy friend would not stop talking about.
What?
Before she was directing films, she wrote 2 other independent films. Frances Ha, a film about a woman realising her expectations on life don't meet her reality, and Mistress America, a film about one woman's expectations on a person which don't meet her reality. I'm sensing a theme here. Now, most directors have a reoccurring theme in their works. Wes Anderson has fathers or father figures, the Coen brothers have Simple Plans Gone Awry, and Michael Bay has America. Think about it. The reoccurring theme for Greta Gerwig is expectations meets reality, if you haven't guessed by the title. I'll be talking about the themes that appear in the films written by Greta Gerwig. But let's talk about our subject. Greta Gerwig is a writer, actress, and now recently an Oscar-nominated director. She started out as an actress in the mumblecore scene, independent romantic comedies, but with more ad-libbing. So, Friends if it was written by the cast of Whose Line Is It Anyway? Sans script. She did TV work. She was one of the main casts in the Adult Swim series China, Illinois.
Oh my God, Steve!
Whoa, his inch! It's lethal!
Yeah. Anyway, she was one of the leads in Noah Baumbach's 2010 movie Greenberg, starring Ben Stiller. And in 2012, she co-written the film Frances Ha with Baumbach, with him also taking directing reins. So, Frances Ha was released in 2013, which was a big year for black and white movies. Is it a little bit grayscale around here? Anyway, so Noah Baumbach's New York City set coming-of-age dramedy film about Frances, a dancer who's navigating life while finding out her life isn't the going away she's expecting. She navigates different roommates, her best friend Sophie, played by Mickey Sumner, to 2 hipsters, one is played by Adam Driver, and numerous other people, but she ends up alone. And this is one of the important themes of the film. Loneliness.
There's something when you watch someone alone, you feel like you never get to do that. I mean, because if you're there, you're there. So I've always liked, I remember there was, when I was growing up, I'd see a lot of theater, and some of it was good and some of it was not so good, but sometimes there were moments in plays when a character would just walk onto the set and they'd be alone for a while before the other person comes in and says, like, well, Harold called, or something. And or like the moments in dance, I love watching rehearsals of dancers because you see them before the dance starts, and there's some quality of like milling around that feels similarly alone, and I think it's something I've always really liked.
Frances ends up alone. She goes to visit her parents in Sacramento. She's alone. When she goes to Paris, alone. The dinner party scene. She's with people, but she's isolated. She's the kid at the table. She's lonely. This adds to the overall theme I'm writing about. Expectations meets reality. Where do you see yourself in the future? Most people imagine they're with their friends. You're having fun. But in reality, friends come in and out of your life. They move apart. Which is the same with the relationship between Frances and Sophie. They are the first characters we are introduced to, and throughout the course of the film, we find out that Sophie is the more adult of the two. She has a boyfriend, she's got a job, her life is going good for her, and we have Frances. She breaks up with her boyfriend because of childish reasons. She can't get a job she wants, and is stuck teaching children how to dance. Symbolic. At the end, we see Frances at her lowest point, back at her old college, but we later see Sophie being drunk and disruptive there as well. This is upside down. Oh, spoilers for a film 6 years ago. This throws our expectations under the rug, and we see the inverse of the relationship. Even the bed scene at the beginning is flipped. Frances is now more mature, and acting responsible for a friend while Sophie isn't being responsible. It's probably one of the best scenes of the movie where they talk about their prospects for the future at the start and where they ended up. It's very French New Wave. Oh, you don't know what French New Wave is? Well...
I like French films, pretentious, boring French films. I like French films. 3 tickets, s'il vous plaît. Ow.
For those of you that don't know, French New Wave was a movement during the 50s and 60s in France where French film directors made films that mixed Hollywood-style filmmaking with philosophy. Francis Ha does this, but more laid back. While something like Jean-Luc Godard's Weekend would talk about regime in Africa, Baumbach's Francis Ha would talk about that moment where you meet someone.
I want this one moment. It's what I want in a relationship, which might explain why I'm single now. Ha ha. It's kind of hard to... It's that thing when you're with someone and you love them and they know it and they love you and you know it, but it's a party and you're both talking to other people and you're laughing and shining and you look across the room and catch each other's eyes, but not because you're possessive or it's precisely sexual.
A New Wave film would have vignettes.
Les civils, c'est l'île de France ici, c'est pas Saint-Tropez.
Frances and her friend Benji watch 400 Blows from Francois Truffaut. And this film borrows a scene from French film Marvelous Sang.
I know when to go out, know when to stay in, get things done. I catch a paper boy, but things don't really change. I'm standing in the wind, but I never wave my light. But I try.
It's Baumbach's tribute to New Wave. Heck, Gerwig calls a New Wave theme relations. Relations are themes not just in this film, but in Gerwig's 2 other films. But let's talk about Mistress America. Released in 2015, this screwball comedy is about Tracy Fishgirl, played by Lola Kirk. She's a college freshman who's having trouble fitting in. Her only friend and crush is dating someone else. She's getting a stepsister, Brooke, played by the sole writer of this film this time, Greta Gerwig. Brooke is expectation meets reality per person. She's presented as larger than life, she plays music and is planning a business. But throughout the film, we find out that she isn't that perfect. Her business plan isn't really watertight and loses funding. This shows how we expect too much on people, but they end up disappointing us. But that doesn't dent the sisterly relationship between Brooke and Tracy, which is another recurring theme of Gerwig's work: relationships between women. Who here knows what the Bechdel test is? Well, it's a test to see if a movie which has 2 women characters in it talk about something that isn't men. This has been applied to several different films. Gerwig's films do pass the criteria. Why, there are scenes where they do talk about sex and boyfriends.
There's no cheating when you're 18. You should all be touching each other all the time.
How could you not want to date him? He's kind of magic.
Because I'm with Patch.
But it's not just that. It's other stuff, like expectations, friends, and family. Gerwig's films are also about female relationships. Now, if you can't tell, I'm a man, so I can't talk about my experiences, but these films do show different relationships. Frances Ha is about relationship between friends. Mistress America is about relationship between sisters or stepsisters and other women. Brooke has a bit of resentment against her former friend, Mamie Claire, the woman who stole the t-shirt idea and boyfriend. Tracy has a rivalry with Nicolette, the boyfriend of Tony, Tracy's centre of affection. But our expectations are subverted on them. While Mamie Claire did steal Brooke's t-shirt idea, she's the only sane woman in the room compared to her husband Dylan.
I'm impressed, Brooke. It takes a lot of moxie to start a restaurant.
Thanks.
You're doing it, babe. You're out there doing something besides amassing and hoarding money.
He's a bit eccentric. And Tracy is just trying to steal Nicolette's man. She's a homewrecker, as the kids say. In the end, the main characters make amends with them. Now, Mistress America does tie in the themes of loneliness and expectation. In the end of the film, both the leads end up alone. Tracy and Brooke end up having a falling out. Brooke finds an essay that Tracy wrote, and she doesn't like it. This ends up with Tracy losing all her friends and being alone. Brooke ends up alone herself, but her life is more stable. In the end, they do mend their friendship, but their expectations on each other are subverted. So anyway, let's talk about Gerwig's directorial debut, Lady Bird. So Lady Bird is about Christine Lady Bird McPherson, a young girl who wants to leave her dead-end town of Sacramento for New York. It's a very relatable story. She has a rocky relationship with her mother, she wants to be popular but the popular kids are just dicks, and has boyfriend trouble. Again, as a man, I can't speak truth to power with these experiences, but I do think people deal with these issues. This film ties into the themes mentioned beforehand. Lady Bird's expectations on people change. Her first boyfriend turns out to be gay. Her favourite teacher, who's often seen jolly and cheerful, is actually depressed because of his son's death. The popular boy Lady Bird dates turns out to be a dick. But let's talk about the popular kids. Now, if anyone who's seen anything high school related at all, then it's to show that popular kids are the main antagonists in these films. But in this film, they're not. And that's also something Frances Ha and Mistress America have. Now, villains. In Frances Ha, it shows that Frances is her own worst enemy. She turns down her first job opportunity and misses out half of her Paris trip. This is more of a Noah Baumbach thing, because half his protagonists are self-destructive. In Mistress America, Mamie Claire and Nicolette are alluded to be the antagonists, but, as mentioned previously, Mamie Claire is more of the straight woman, and Nicolette didn't want Tracy to steal her man. The only villainous thing she did was show Tracy's paper, and that basically ends up blowing up in Tracy's face. Frances and Tracy are their own worst enemies. In Lady Bird, the popular kids aren't portrayed as like some sort of cartoon villains who run the school like kings. The only bad thing they do is to have a divide between Lady Bird and her friend Julie. But that was Lady Bird's fault because she wanted to fall in with that crowd. Loneliness rears its head in the film as a theme. We have Lady Bird and Julie. They're two best friends who just have each other. They then fall out because Lady Bird was hanging out with the popular kids. They're both from their lonesome, but they reconcile their friendship in the end. The gay boyfriend, after Lady Bird finds out about him, he talks about his fears of being ostracised by his well-to-do family to Lady Bird. The McPherson family as a whole feel like outsiders because they're from the bad side of the tracks in Sacramento. They feel out of place. Now let's talk about relations. If Frances Ha is about friends, Mistress America stepsisters, then Lady Bird is about mothers and daughters, and best friends, and also siblings, and boyfriends. Let's focus on the mother and daughter relationship because that was the most important bit of the film, and I've talked to death about the other two bits. Now, Saoirse Ronan and Laurie Metcalf were great in this film. They felt like an actual mother and daughter on screen. They worked well off each other. Best aspect of the film. The relationship between Lady Bird and Marion is one written with a bit of realism. Laurie Metcalf mentioned in this interview,
when I read the part of Marion, I could identify with a mother and a rebellious teenager at the time because I had one in my own home. So I had that part down.
For mum, Marion, feels like her daughter's cutting the only ties to her family by dating a boy from the rich side of the town and wanted to leave to study in New York. Lady Bird is a rebellious teenager. Marion is the mother that's trying her best for her. Paternal relations are always something seen in film and TV, mostly in teenage-aimed entertainment. There's always a fallout with the parents, but they make up in the end. Same thing goes for Lady Bird. In the end, she respects her mother and grows up. Her expectations on Sacramento and her mother change. Lady Bird grows up, forgoes her nickname and gets homesick for her hometown. Christine grows up. Tracy Fishgo grows up. And Frances Holliday grows up. And that's Greta Gerwig's overall theme. When we grow up, our expectations don't meet reality. Hope you enjoyed this long rambling session.